Hello everybody, my name is Echo1 and today I would like to welcome you to a new series called Overexplained. Now throughout this series I will be presenting one replay each time and we are going to completely take the replay apart when we watch it. We will look at everything that's gone good, we will take a look at everything that's gone bad, and in the end I hope that I will have entertained you and that maybe you've learned a thing or two about the game. Now, if we want to analyze a replay, of course, the first thing we have to know is our own tank. And in this case, this will be the FCM 50T, a Tier 8 French premium heavy tank. Believe it or not, this tank was actually added in the end of 2012. So it's been in the game since what feels like an eternity. When it was introduced into the game, it was the first real hybrid between a medium and a heavy tank, and therefore it was something really special. It was also a member of a pretty exclusive club back then, premium tanks. Nowadays that's very hard to imagine since there are so many inside of the game, but back then having a premium heavy tank was actually something special. It's also worth mentioning that this tank has preferential matchmaking, so it can only meet tier 9 tanks and no tier 10 tanks. However, for the sake of this video, we are more interested in the stats of the FCM than in its history, so let's take a look at that. For a tank that's been inside of the game for such a long time, the FCM actually aged quite well. One main factor for that is that the FCM always had a pretty good gun. We have a base DPM of 2200 with 240 alpha damage and 212mm of penetration. If we use the APCR shells, we will have 259mm of penetration, so overall pretty good news. The aim time of 2.21 seconds is also pretty good, as well as the accuracy of 0.35. One thing that holds this tank back quite noticeably, and nowadays has changed a lot for comparable tanks, is the gun dispersion when moving of 0.19, when turning the tank of also 0.19, and when turning the turret of 0.12. If you compare this tank to other tanks that are newer, you will see that most of the time the dispersion values are actually better on the other tanks. Like I said, the FCM has quite a good mobility for a heavy tank, 51 km/h forward and 20 km/h backward, with an incredibly 1250 horsepower engine. This gives you a total power to weight ratio of 23.05 and makes the tank quite mobile for a heavy tank. It's also worth noticing that this tank has 10 degrees of gun depression, and that helps the tank a lot if you want to play a ridgeline. We have 400 meters of view range, so again pretty good news, and now let's take a look at the armor. Since the tank is a hybrid between a medium and a heavy, you cannot really expect perfect armor, but it's still quite good considering the mobility. In the front we have 120mm armor plate here, and we also have a 120mm of armor plate along the turret. Combine that with a little bit of spaced armor on the gun mantlet, you can see that even though most of the time it's actually pretty easy to penetrate, in some areas there are these absolutely incredibly armor values of up to 400 where a lot of the shells of your opponents will just go missing. It's also worth noticing that you have a cupola on top, which is a pretty big weak spot and can be penetrated easily as well. The last thing that's actually quite important about this tank is that you have a side armor of 80mm. This will allow you to side scrape quite effectively even against big caliber guns. So if we are now going to take a look at the live model, you can see that it's actually quite easy to penetrate the tank from the front, unless you hit some of the variable angled parts of the turret, or you hit the magic area on the turret as well. The upper plate will only be effective if you angle it well, and I mean very well, but sometimes when you are using your gun depression, you can pull off some bounces, especially against lower tiered opponent. On the FCM, you can see that the lower plate actually is not really the main weak spot, but the upper plate is weaker in most of the cases. So now we are in the game and we are actually going to try to make the 25 seconds or 20 seconds that we have remaining count. We are going to analyze the opponent's team, and we can quickly see that first of all it's a tier 8 matchup, which is pretty good for me. The enemy team does not have artillery, and they do not even have too many heavy tanks. In a matchup like this, what you wanna do is, just be active. That's the most important thing. Pilsen, when it comes to the layout, is a pretty, I don't wanna say shitty map, but the problem is, as soon as both teams have taken their positions, it's pretty hard to do anything, because there is just a whole lot of protection. So what you will have most of the time is just hull down tanks fighting it out with each other, and that's just not what the FCM is good at. So I decided to push the one line. I'm going to go left around this house. The Tiger 1 is the tank that I've spotted, so I can safely assume that the Tiger 1 also spotted me, since the distance is just not big and I don't have camo mode. Now I'm peeking around this corner, which has already been a mistake, because if I still was spotted, I could get hit from the hill up there, because if there's a tank destroyer up there, they should actually be able to shoot me. Now I'm getting spotted once again, and guess what happens? Yep, there was a tank destroyer up there, the Rheinmetall Borsig, and he fired at me, dealing 500 damage. Now after this shot, I know that he's reloading, and what I see a lot of people do is panic and assume that once they've been shot, they have to take cover. However, in this situation where I know that the tank is reloading, I got all the time in the world, or at least until he reloads again, to stay still, aim, and shoot him to at least reduce his hit points by a certain amount. Now, in the situation where I'm at, it's important for me to apply pressure on the team, and the first thing that I saw was the Tiger P, so I instantly decided to shoot him. The Tiger 1, you can see at the moment, is having a bit of trouble because there are a couple of tanks in front of him, and I'm also flanking him from the side. The team pushes in, which is always nice if your team is acting with your, if your team is actually supporting you. And now you can almost see me make another mistake. Almost peeked that side again and would have risked to get shot by the Rheinmetall or the 1850A, where we are not 100% sure if he's around the corner or not. I realized that the Su-152 was there, and once again that was a pretty risky shot, but I was actually quite sure that he was aiming at the other tanks that were spotted and not at me, because I was dark for quite a while. Now, like I said, I've been talking about mistakes, and okay, let's pause this for a bit. First of all, the AT-15A was actually around the corner, so if he would have faced me, he could have shot me, he could have tracked me, and if I would not be able to repair, or if the Rheinmetall Borsig would track me again, I would be stuck in a situation that I would not want to be stuck in. The AT-15A has a pretty good gun and pretty good DPM, and there's also, like I said, the Rheinmetall Borsig. So that was a very risky play, and something that I would not recommend you do. However, I came around the corner and I realized the AT-15A was not facing me. It doesn't have a turret, so there's no reason to be worried about the AT-15A. I also saw that the Rheinmetall Borsig was not aiming at me, so in fact I had the time to aim and shoot and take him out. Now, I am behind the AT-15A. AT-15A, oh god, how often have I said that now? And I'm trying to track him, of course because I want to immobilize him, but also because I want to get some support damage if possible. Now, I thought that our team was able to deal with him a lot quicker than they were actually able to, but at least they killed him at some point. And now what you could see was that actually we were ahead by 7-3, I think, and now pretty close game once again. The opponent's team went through the eastern flank and annihilated everything that they could find there. So, like I said, once again a pretty close game. And what you see here is me hesitating. I do not have a clear plan like in the beginning. Pretty much everything that I planned for this game worked out, and now I have to face the new situation and I should act accordingly. I still think I will be able to kill the T-25 too, but he's behind some cover and I'm not going to be able to do that. I also know that the team of the opponent's team will probably push through the south at some point, and therefore maybe cross the area that I was just aiming at. But I have to decide what I want to do now, and me hesitating there is one of the reasons why this game is being so super close and why this game will be even closer in the end. Now, what should I do? Honestly, as long as I'm doing something, as long as I bring my tank into the game, as long as I apply any kind of pressure, or even if I only show presence at some point, I'm already contributing way more than I do at the moment. Here we have another stupid idea. I want to shoot the Lanzen, however, usually if the opponent's team pushes south and they are already across that point, there might still be tanks up on this ridgeline and they could easily shoot me. So once again, I risk pretty much for basically nothing since I was not able to shoot the Lanzen C there. Here you can see the 80mm of side armor work. That's exactly what I've been talking about before. With this kind of side armor you can side scrape against pretty much every tank, and especially against a low caliber gun like the one on the AMX. This is where the game actually becomes interesting and where it becomes, pretty fast once again. After we've been standing around for, or actually we're not quite there yet, but I've been standing around for a bit now. I didn't really do anything. I tried to shoot the Lanzen, I've shot at the AMX once, but really what I should have done is try to go for a flank, decide what I will do, and then stick with it and try to go through with it. Now I got spotted and I'm kind of worried that the Lanzen C will be out there and spotting me. You can see me checking those bushes there and I want to see if I get spotted again. However, at that moment the Lanzen C appears somewhere else. So now that is the point that I was talking about. You could see that actually I would have been able to shoot the AMX M449 over there. However, this tank is not really the biggest threat to our AMX since, hopefully at least, he's facing him with the front, and that's where both of the tanks are well armored. Instead I decide to take some pressure off the back of the AMX and engage the opponents who are behind him. The first target that I can shoot is the T-54, and since both of these tanks are two shots for me, it doesn't really matter which one I take out first. I was also a little bit worried that the T-54 might get away, since it looked like he was just running, and therefore I thought Lanzen C would be the safer target to take out as the second tank. Now what you see here, after I put a shot into the AMX, you can see that I instantly turn my attention towards the Lanzen C, because I want to know what he does. The AMX is stuck there. It's a pretty slow tank, it's not gonna make some magic moves, but the Lanzen C is quite agile, and therefore I expect him to go around and flank me from behind. This is why I try to go forward. I take a moment of time, put another shot into the AMX, and indeed, what I expected to happen does happen. The Lanzensee approaches me from behind and most likely will go around and shoot me. Now I do have pretty good DPM like I mentioned before, so it's easy for me to take out the AMX, and the Lanzensee did not take the time that he had there. He was rushing it, therefore missed the shot, or didn't penetrate the shot at least, and I'm still at 700 HP. Now, with the game being so close, I decide to load gold ammunition, and this is a major mistake once again. I've seen the Lorraine approach there, and I have to assume at this point that the Lorraine will be fully loaded. So, with the Lorraine going from over here to over here, this means that what I should have done, I was going into this direction. So I could have used the rubble on the right side to actually have protection against the Lorraine. However, by turning around to the left, I'm now standing in a complete open spot, and the Lorraine 40T is able to damage me. The first shot, once again, couple of lucky situations in this game already, but the first shot only hits my track, doesn't damage me, and the second shot deals 295 damage. So, now we have another situation. I will pause it again. There are 3 tanks on the opponent's team. One of them is the Lorraine. Pretty sure the Lorraine is reloading now, since there would be no other explanation for the Lorraine to fall back there. This leaves the AMX M445, a pretty weakly armored heavy tank of the French tech tree, and the Super Hellcat. Now if we take a look at the hit points, the Super Hellcat is actually at 218 HP, while the AMX is full HP. So my next goal should be to kill the Super Hellcat, because usually, like I said, usually I can take it out in one shot. However, RNG was not on my side this time, and the Super Hellcat survives. He underestimates the reload that I have, and therefore peeks again, and this is really where the game is going to be decided. Now, the Super Hellcat is taken out of the game, and the AMX is pushing into me. He did not penetrate the IS, so the IS will be able to put a shot into the AMX, reducing his hit points to a one-shot. At the same moment, the Lorraine 40T appears, and since he just killed the IS, it's safe to assume that he is reloaded. Now, what can I do in a situation like this? I could go forward and try to use this rubble to protect me, but with the AMX pushing into me, there's really no way I would get there in time. Most likely scenario would be that I stop here and the AMX would push me out into the Lorraine. So the only thing I can do is go back, kill the AMX, and hope that the wreck will be between the Lorraine and between the Lorraine and me. And now we are in a situation where the Lorraine will take 2 shots to kill me, at least more likely, and I will take 2 shots to kill the Lorraine. So what I do now is use the wreck to protect me as well as I can, take 1 shot into the Lorraine bounces off the turret, and I will be able to finish the Lorraine off, even though I have to take another shot from him. Okay, now that has been a very close game, a little too close for comfort if I'm being honest, but then again, if the game is close and if you still manage to win it on 1 shot, then that's just even more rewarding. I criticized a whole lot about this replay, even though overall it was a pretty good game, and according to Wargaming, at least experience-wise, it was actually the best game that I've played last year. Now, one thing that you should not forget, and that I should also not forget, is that the reason why I've seen all these things is that I had time. In the heat of the battle, you don't have the time to analyze everything. You can't just take a pause, lean back, look at the situation, and judge it accordingly. You have to make very quick adjustments and very quick decisions. So, not everything that you see me do or see me actually criticize after watching the replay a couple of times can be applied to the real situation when in game. However, certain mistakes, like for example peeking into an opponent that I could easily side scrape, or generally peeking into an opponent that I don't know where he's aiming or if he's reloaded, that's a mistake that I can certainly learn from. The other mistake that I find myself do more often than I'd like to admit is that at some point in the battle, I stop acting and I only react. And reacting puts you into a passive position, and most of the time, that's not the position that you want to be in. Especially in a game that close, every shot can decide the situation. So if I'm being AFK or basically AFK for about 2 minutes, then a lot of things can happen, and sometimes if it goes badly, you already lost the game by that time. However, I also feel like I did a couple of things right. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure we would not have won this battle. The first thing that I want to highlight is, and I cannot stress this enough, the 30 seconds before the battle starts are actually important. It gives you the time to analyze what your strengths are, what the map looks like, what your opponent's lineup looks like, and it gives you the possibility to make a plan. Having a plan is always great. It doesn't mean that you will have to stick to it throughout the entirety of the game, and no matter what happens, no. You can change your plan accordingly, but it always helps to have a plan to begin with. Throughout the whole game, I also managed to prioritize the right targets. In the case of the Rheinmetall Borsig, you could see that I'm not shooting the tank that cannot harm me in any way, and that is also overall not that big of a threat, but I prioritized the target with the better gun, with the higher potential damage, and also that was the target that was more likely to get away than an AT-15A. In the other situation, you could see me prioritize the two low HP medium tanks over the heavy tank. Both medium tanks were flanking. They also have higher damage potential because they have the higher DPM, and therefore they are way more important. The last tank that I prioritized was the Super Hellcat. It was a one-shot, even though I rolled low, and therefore it was important to take it out instead of shooting a tank that had some hit points left anyways. And now the only thing left to do is look at the post-game stats. Unsurprisingly, it was an ace game tanker. I managed to get a Radley Walters medal for killing 8 tanks. Also, I managed to get the high caliber medal. The Top Gun was of course included in the Radley Walters medal. I dealt 5,400 damage over the course of the battle, killing 8 opponents and gaining 1,760 XP. Now, like I said before, the FCM is actually a premium tank and it makes quite a solid amount of credits. You have a pretty good gun with decent penetration, so against tier 8 tanks and below, you rarely ever have to use premium ammunition. This is very beneficial when it comes to the economy of this tank. At the moment of this replay, the holiday bonus was still active, and I also added the personal reserve bonus, so I made 170,000 profit. However, even without these bonuses, I would have still made a quite decent amount of profit. The reason why I had to spend so much credits for the ammunition is because I fired way too many APCR shells. Now, I switched to the APCR shells because I was under pressure and I thought it would make it easier for me to reliably penetrate the opponent. And of course, that's what premium ammo is good for. And I don't regret switching to the premium armor because I prefer winning a game like this and maybe spend some money on the ammunition rather than losing it and not gaining money in the first place. In a normal game, without the pressure, I'm pretty sure I would have switched back to the normal ammunition as soon as I realized that the opponents that I was facing don't require premium ammunition at all. So that concludes the video. I hope you could learn something and have some fun while watching it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.